So, first up, I mean, you would have seen there that I'm playing as a male avatar. You know, we've added female avatars to the game this year. So, because we do have a lot of female fans who love the sport and they want to play the game. So this year, last year was quite a linear system. This year, it's very much an R&D, a very wide-ranging sort of skills tree system almost. So the player can choose the path that they take the car. So it's a case of, you know, you can start working on a certain area and then you'll hit an upgrade that's obviously going to cost you significantly more to develop. But also upgrades can fail. You know, they're not necessarily guaranteed to be successful. So that's where the player can also look at improving areas of the team so that the R&D upgrades are delivered either earlier or you know, with a level of reliability that they might not have had previously. So it gives the player a really totally open experience with that, and they can, you know, take a team from the bottom to the top, and they can do it how they choose to do it. So I think obviously the first one and the most obvious one is that we've introduced some classic cars to the game, some absolutely iconic cars from the world of Formula One. You know, we've got obviously the 2010 Red Bulls in there at the moment. We've announced that. We've got the selection of Ferraris, and the player can use that content in so many different ways.
Well, we just announced a new car today, right?
We announced some Ferraris today, yeah. A selection of Ferraris that are going to be in the game. And what we wanted to do with the classics was, we know how much everybody plays the career, we know how important that is to people, and they don't want to take part in the career and then have to leave that part of the game to go and do other things. You know, they want to be bettering and improving their career. So the classic cars are also featured throughout there. So as last year we introduced 2 characters to the game who, you know, lead you through your career. They deal with your contracts, they deal with your R&D. We've now got a guy who's a bit of a rich guy. You know, he swans into the hospitality, and he's got an air of sort of confidence about him. And he's a guy who owns a selection of classic cars. And what he does is he comes and invites you to drive his cars, you know, on weekends where there's no races, and is to go and take part in different types of racing, different styles of racing. So it's very much like modern day, sort of a Goodwood Revival, Goodwood Festival of Speed style event. You know, he'll invite you to either do like a pursuit where you have to chase down slower cars in a really fast Formula One car.
Well, the track looks gorgeous. You've done significant improvements even from last year. Can we show just some of the lighting and some of the different tracks?
Let's pick. So something which you can see here as I flick through these menus,
okay.
Which I'll highlight, is that there's a Bahrain short there. So in order to really make great use of some of this new content we've got in there, we've also added in some short circuit layouts to mix things up a little bit. So because we've got these different styles of gameplay, such as the pursuit or the time attack style gameplay. We wanted to change some of the circuits a little bit as well and give sort of a snappier sort of style. So as you can see there's a Bahrain short circuit, there's also an Austin, Texas short circuit, and we've got a couple more which we're yet to announce. So and also they can use the classic content outside of the career as well, so you can use it in time trial, you can use it online, you can use it in the Grand Prix mode, and what we've done to allow the players to really get the most out of them. In online games, for example, they can run any of the classic cars. There's no team structure in that anymore. So instead of having to worry about 2 people driving the same car, you can actually have a whole grid of the same car if you choose to do so. And you know, we create different styles of racing with spec racing, so it's all the same car, or racing classes within races. So there's 2 classes. So there's the super fast guys in the C1s and the slightly slower cars in the C2s. So you know, you can use all of the classic content together on track at the same time and get a different experience. And this year we've expanded that. I mean, something which we always found quite amusing was that if you did particularly badly and you were disciplined or sacked from your career, you know, she did it in public. So now we've built the agent a nice office. So she works from the office, and we've got the upstairs place in the hospitality is now a different location. That looks really cool. And we've also modelled the back of the garages, at the back of the garages where they have the lorries, the large vehicles where they work on the telemetry and things like that. We've now modelled that area as well. So that's where the player can then go and deal with R&D and speak to his R&D guy.
So you were mentioning that obviously there's a huge amount of kind of a manager metagame within this. There's obviously the racing component, and then there's a managerial aspect of you have a team, you have a career, you have sponsorships that you have to maintain, and if you don't perform for those individual teams, then they can drop you as a driver.
Yeah, and you could end up looking for a drive with a lesser team, or you might look in and somebody might actually have quite liked how you're performing, and that's something that you can really pay more attention to in this year's game. You can actually follow your performance with the other teams as well, so you can see who thinks you're doing well, who's gelling with you, and so you might be looking for a drive for Ferrari, and you can see that they're not interested in you as you're doing at the moment. So yeah, their requirements might be slightly different. So I think firstly one of the coolest things is the hardware compatibility this year. We're actually already showing at E3 on Xbox X. So I think that's pretty special that we're showing this early in the hardware life cycle for 4K HDR, 60 frames per second. We're obviously supporting PS4 Pro.
That's incredible. You're running at full 4K Ultra HD at 60 frames per second with this game. Pre-launch of the hardware. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it looks incredible. We've been able to turn up some of the options, make the mirrors more impressive, better shadows. It's generally just given the game a really nice visual uplift. We're also obviously continuing to support more hardware, so the wheel support's increasing. There's a lot of wheels coming out these days. I think it's an area which is really starting to expand. People are taking their racing games very seriously these days. So it's great for us and it's great for them. It's just growing the market for everybody. So that's given us the opportunity to, finesse the game even more. So, talking about building a deeper career, we've added in this year the ability to manage the engine and gearbox. They're such a major component of the sport. It's something we're hearing so much about this season. And we break the engine down into the different components as well, so that the player has to manage certain elements of the car. So it might not, it might not be a complete engine failure. It could just be one particular area. So we give the player that whole. It's like a management mode within the game as well.
So Lee, you just mentioned that this game comes out in the middle of the F1 season. So how do you update because there's rule changes, there are different things that happen mid-season, there are team changes. How and when do you keep this game, since it is a simulation, it is a real life license game, how do you keep that current? How do you update post-launch? Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on the performance of the cars throughout the season, and if there's any major changes, those are things that we'll certainly address. Right. And also, you see the teams regularly change liveries or make changes to the physical, attributes of the car, the model of the car, and those are things that we can patch in, post-launch over the course of the rest of the season. Like we did last year, we want to try and keep the game relevant for as long as possible, make sure that the player's experiencing what they see when they watch the sport on TV. So if Ferrari decides that they're just not going to have their engines work very well anymore, you can nerf those cars essentially in game. We could adjust performance. We would never touch reliability, so that's something that's in the player's hands. That's how they manage things. It's entirely up to the player. If they got engine problems, that's their problem. That's how they've managed things. They've not developed the right part of the skills tree, for example. Right. Maybe they've not worked hard enough on the reliability. Maybe they've concentrated too much on another area. There it is. So we've got the McLaren. Right, there's the McLaren MP44, and what we've done for that as well, we've added support for a H pattern shifter and clutch as well. That car was a old school, hardcore driven, in that way. So we wanted the player to be able to experience that as well. Very cool. And this is actually that 44 is part of the Legacy Edition. So that's the DLC car. It's not DLC, sorry. That's the pre-order car. Right, exactly. So if you pre-order the game, you'll get access to the MP44. Yeah, so for all physical formats, that is in the day one edition. If you pick up the game on day one, you will receive this additional car. Yeah, and all 12 classic cars, minus the pre-order car, are all on disc. You'll have all of the cars from the beginning, so all 11 teams will be there, plus the McLaren, obviously, if you pre-order.